I'm delighted to announce that my new book, Principles of Economics, is now available. You can order the hardcover and the ebook now from my website, Saifedean.com, and it will be available from June 21 from Amazon and online and offline bookshops worldwide. Principles of Economics is a university-level textbook offering a comprehensive, engaging, and easy-to-read overview of the field of economics that is valuable to the university student, general reader, and professional economist. This book is the culmination of 4 years of hard work and 20 years of learning and teaching economics at university level. It is everything I wish I had in a university economics textbook. Rather than confuse the reader with arcane theoretical models and irrelevant analysis of aggregates, this book is unapologetically Austrian in its approach, using the clear written word to introduce the principles, methods, and concepts of economics in a readable, engaging, and informative manner. You can also get the ebook by becoming a member of Saifedean.com, where you can join our weekly seminars, which discuss economics, Bitcoin, and much more, and also host special guests, which you can listen to in this podcast's episodes. The Bitcoin Standard podcast is brought to you by CrowdHealth. CrowdHealth is the Bitcoiner's answer to fiat health insurance. If you listen to the show, you've probably heard me rail against the problems of modern healthcare and health insurance. CrowdHealth is a brilliant new solution to this problem that leverages the power of Bitcoin to help people get affordable healthcare. CrowdHealth holds its cash reserves in Bitcoin. It negotiates with healthcare providers on your behalf and gets you much better rates by offering to pay them cash, upfront, without having to go through the expensive bureaucracy of modern healthcare insurance. It's a solution that works better for healthcare providers and for patients by disintermediating large insurance companies who have the wrong incentives and are constantly raising costs. I'm very happy to have signed up for CrowdHealth, and I'm really excited to support them as they disrupt the fiat health insurance industry. Go to joincrowdhealth.com and use the discount code SAIF, S-A-I-F, and you'll get the first 6 months for $99 only. Coinbits. Coinbits is a great way to introduce your pre-coiner friends and family to Bitcoin. Get them set up in under a minute and help kickstart their journey by turning everyday spare change into Bitcoin. This Bitcoin-only app takes the uncertainty and fear out of Bitcoin saving by rounding up debit and credit card purchases to the nearest dollar, then using the difference to buy Bitcoin. Set it, forget it, and let the app automatically tax your high-time preference spending by saving the hardest money ever. Want to save in Bitcoin faster? Customers can multiply their roundups up to 10x, or adjust their savings frequency for weekly or daily Bitcoin stacking. Coinbits is built on a sound, tried and true dollar cost averaging strategy that turns Bitcoin's volatility in your favor. Once you've gotten a private wallet set up, Coinbits encourages you to withdraw your Bitcoin to your own private wallet and embrace the Bitcoin Standard way of life. Start stacking on coinbitsapp.com and save your time and energy in the soundest money ever. Get paid in Bitcoin regardless of who you work for and regardless of who is paying you. All thanks to a premium service I personally love and use, and that is Bitwage. Thanks to Bitwage, I receive my book's royalties in Bitcoin. It is cheaper, faster, and easier. It is a true set-it-and-forget-it system, and Bitwage has been offering this premium service since 2014. Anyone can sign up and use it right away. No restrictions or limits, fully non-custodial. You can even split your incoming payment. Get part in Bitcoin and part to a bank account you specify. It could not be easier, and I cannot recommend Bitwage highly enough. Go to bitwage.com and sign up now and get paid in Bitcoin with your next payment or salary. Hello, welcome to another episode of the Bitcoin Standard podcast. Our guest today is Kgothatso Ngako, who is a software engineer born and raised in Pretoria in South Africa. And he's working on projects that make Bitcoin more accessible in local communities around Africa. He is the founder of Machankura, a very interesting internet device, an app, really, a Bitcoin app that allows people to send and receive Bitcoin without an internet-connected device. It operates across 9 countries in Africa, and any old mobile phone, not just a smartphone, can use Machankura to send and receive Bitcoin across these 9 countries. I thought it was a very interesting project that Paco de la India mentioned to me in his podcast when he came on. And so I thought we'd get Kgothatso on board. And then when I contacted him, I remembered I know him because he had signed up to courses on Saifedean.com many years ago. Well, a few years ago. He signed up and was one of the students who was learning on this platform. And I was delighted to see that he's founded a company that is doing so well. So Kgothatso, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, Saif.
So tell us a little bit about your background and what got you into the world of Bitcoin.
Okay, cool. So I studied computer science at the University of Pretoria, and effectively when I graduated around 2015, 2016, I wanted to put my money somewhere, disposable income, and make it work for me, as they all say. And yeah, so I started exploring what options are available to me and what would be the best option available to me. Of course, I had also heard about Bitcoin during university in one computer security lecture, and didn't pay attention to that lecture because at the start of the lecture they just said this will not be in the exam. So I stopped listening at that point. And that was, I think, 2014. And I wish I had listened, but anyway, by 2017, when the bull market was happening, the prices were going crazy. And then I remembered, there's this Bitcoin thing, and started shitcoining. And 2018 bear market happened, and then I was like, nah, man, there's really something I'm getting wrong. And so I started reading up on as much content as I could find on the topic of Bitcoin. Your book being one of them, the Fiat Standard. And one of the things that were recurring from my perspective, like what are you going to do with disposable income? The best thing you could do is, of course, invest it for the long term, right? I think this was Warren Buffett's thesis as well of value investing and things like that. And yeah, Bitcoin fit so well to that belief. And I also didn't want to spend too much time tracking which companies, which stocks, which things my money is in. So with Bitcoin, I could just pick it and DCA into it and forget about it for the rest of the year, and maybe once a year come and check in. And yeah, so then that's how I got here. But then the major thing for me was that, okay, how would you make Bitcoin more accessible in South Africa, and more specifically my own communities, like the townships and the rural villages? And yeah, so there was a few barriers to get rid of. The first one is, of course, the language barrier with the content or literature that explains how Bitcoin works, not just the books, right? I think a lot of articles are written that explains Bitcoin in all these different ways, like even the I Am Hotline article. Right? So yeah, I started a project called Exonumia, where we translate Bitcoin literature into African languages, and that has been doing well. But then as I'm, explaining to people like, okay, cool, this is what you do. When we get to the point of sending a Bitcoin transaction, the biggest barrier is not everyone has an internet connected device. Right? And I use the term internet connected device loosely because it may also be a smartphone, but it may not have internet data on it, right? Or it may not have data that is accessible or that is able to access all the websites. So in South Africa, we do not have a concept of net neutrality. And this effectively means a person can buy data that only works on WhatsApp. So when you tell them, download this app, they're like, okay, I'll download it when I have Wi-Fi or in internet data, even though you are talking with them over WhatsApp. And then when they download it, probably not using a flagship Android device as well. So they're probably using a cheap Android device, and they do not have space to install yet another app. And yeah, so most apps that do well are very small apps or apps that are online, right? And yeah, now with TikTok, people save videos to their device that does not have a lot of space. So the problem is becoming harder and harder. And yeah, so what I decided to do is then implement a similar system to mobile money over USSD. Right? And USSD is a GSM technology, so it works on any phone with a cellular connection, and it just starts a prompt and response session with the user to the service, right? So then the user gets shown a prompt, And in that prompt, the user has 20 seconds to respond before the session dies, right? So everything you can do over USSD should be done within these 20-second intervals. So every input you can get from a user has to be given within 20 seconds. So first issue is a Bitcoin address cannot be typed out on a device like this feature phone, right? So how is a person going to input where to send money to, right? So mobile money, of course, phone numbers is easy enough to do it, right? So you could easily type out a phone number within 20 seconds on a keypad like this, but then that would be a centralized service and you wouldn't be able to send Bitcoins outside of the service. And this is then where Lightning addresses came in. And yeah, I just found the ability, or giving the person with such a device the ability to enter a Lightning address over USSD and effectively send Bitcoin anywhere in the world. Very interesting. And that is when the service became available to everyone else. And yeah, so users of Machankura then get a Lightning address, which by default is their phone number at 833.mobi. Right? But then they could also use the USSD menus to set up a username for you wanted to ask something?
Okay, let me just repeat that. It's their username at
833.mobi.
833.mobi.
Yeah, 833.mobi, right? So yeah, should be an easy enough domain to remember. It's the default Bitcoin port that runs on Bitcoin Core. So on the .mobi top level domain. And yeah, so then yeah, a person is able to send and receive Bitcoin on their feature phone via USSD, and that's pretty much it.
Very nice. And so how long have you been working on this project?
I think now it's been a year, right? Started it around May, and also started it because of two things, right? I think the first thing was that I had set up a Lightning node on a Raspberry Pi. So I think one of these bad boys. I think this may be the exact one, but I don't know. I have too many lying around. And the other one is that a lot of Bitcoiners across Africa were just saying, yo, how do we make Bitcoin accessible to people with feature phones? And I just responded to one of the tweets asking that, like, oh, give me 2 weeks and then I'll put it together. And yeah, I think the proof of concept was up in a week, but then it took me a few more weeks to get it into other countries.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable because it's a very short period of time to build something like this, and but it's actually genius in its simplicity because SSD is something that many people have used on their phone to charge their phone, recharge their phone, and yet it can be used for money. So how does it work on the back end? So for me as a user, I get to choose this, but how do I put money? How do I give you money so that I can send and receive money?
Yeah, so effectively, it's a custodial Bitcoin wallet, right? So it works in the same fashion as a wallet of Satoshi, right? So for you to have a positive Bitcoin balance, you would have to receive Bitcoin, right? And this is where one of the biggest hurdles we faced came in. Like, okay, cool. The person on this device technically is not able to create an account with an exchange, right? And send themselves Bitcoin. So the beauty of the Bitcoin space is there's probably a Bitcoin company solving whatever problem you're currently facing. And in this case, that is true as well. Azteco sells Bitcoin vouchers, right? So a person can go to a corner store and buy a voucher and dial the USSD code in a similar fashion that you would dial the USSD code when you're topping up your phone minutes. But then instead of entering your airtime credit voucher, you then enter the Azteco voucher code. And then from there, we will then top up your Bitcoin balance by redeeming the Bitcoin from Azteco's side. So you don't even have to visit Azteco's website to make that redemption. And yeah, that is effectively the best way for a person to get Bitcoin and this on this system.
I see. And so it's basically a fully custodial. You're taking charge of other people's Bitcoin. But
yes,
I think in this case it makes sense because it's meant for small payments. So it's not meant to be your savings account. It's meant to be for getting around transaction fees and getting around not having internet connection, right?
Yes, most definitely.
And how did you handle the Bitcoin on the back end? Do you keep custody yourself, or do you use a custodian, or what do you do?
Keep custody myself, right? Since, well, it was started when I set up a Lightning node on a Pi. I just run a few Lightning nodes. And yeah, the other funny thing is that when I started the project is when load shedding became aggressive, right? So our rolling power cuts, our scheduled rolling power
Sorry,
cuts.
when what?
Load shedding, South Africa's rolling power outages.
Oh yeah, load shedding. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, your sustainable contribution to the grid and to grid management technology, where you're learning how to join the future of sustainable energy by just enjoying not having electricity.
Yeah, we are pioneers in that department. Right? So yeah, then the biggest issue for me was that, okay, cool. I do not have electricity 24 hours a day, and then I cannot have good internet 24 hours a day because the network kind of dips out. The network quality dips out during a power outage. So yeah, then I set up multiple nodes, and then the service works off of multiple nodes in the back end. And if you do visit the website, at the bottom there's a node section there, and then you could see the nodes that we are running on behalf of the customers. And yeah, then if you are technical enough to keep tabs on the node, you are then able to keep tabs on the node and its capacity and all these other information that's available on the Lightning Network.
That's pretty fascinating. So it's a brilliant idea. Do you know if anybody else was trying this in other places other than Africa, or is it only you in Africa who's doing this?
I think at the current moment, I'm the only one. Right? There are other projects. I think I forgot the name of Capucha. I think Capucha was a wallet from 2013, which was effectively doing the same thing that I'm currently doing. But at the time, they were also a fiat on-ramp and off-ramp. Right? I'm just Bitcoin only at the current moment, and probably for the foreseeable future. And with them, they lost their fiat integration, right? I think the fiat integration went directly into mobile money, which is the biggest digital payment implementer across the continent, or specifically in Kenya. And when they lost that, I don't think they saw value in having a Bitcoin wallet to users, right? And they were still on chain and everything like that. So yeah, for now, I'm probably the only service, but there have also been other services that did it via SMS. I think Cointigo were a few SMS providers, so you could send an SMS and use SMS to send and receive Bitcoin using their services.
Yeah. And so how has it been for you in terms of managing the money? Because now you're basically dealing with 9 different cell phone networks across 9 different countries, right? So
yeah,
you told me Ghana, Kenya, Malawi, Namibia, Nigeria, South Africa, Tanzania, Uganda, and Zambia. That's an enormous number of people. I mean, Nigeria is more than 200 million people at this point on its own. South Africa is about 60 or 70, if I recall. So that's, I think between all of these countries, that's maybe 500 million people. You've got some over there, something like that.
Yeah. But we're still growing in user numbers. But from a management perspective, I think it's no different with how Wallet of Satoshi does it. Right? And on my side personally, it's just code, right? I could just write the code and then make sure that the code only spends from a person's balance when that person has a positive balance. And yeah, that's it. I personally even don't see those numbers on my side, right? And yeah, so on the long-term side, though, it's something I would want to avoid, like getting to a point where 1 billion people are actually onboarded or putting all of their money on the service, the security that I'd have to implement is going to get a little crazy. So we are working on a way to give people self-custody of their, what's the word, Bitcoins, right? And there's two reasons for this. Let me see if I have it. So the first reason is even getting in those 9 countries was a headache because I use a service provider, right? And the service provider in my case is Africa's Talking, and they are the USSD gateway provider. So I do not have to maintain a relationship with each telecom in each country. Right? So I just maintain a relationship with them, and they are also part of the reason why I got into so many countries so quickly, right? But they're not the only one. The other one I've used is Pattern Matched, right? And Pattern Matched, I did the deployment with them in Namibia, right? So I only have to maintain the service between the service provider and myself, right? And then, implement whatever I need to implement to have that integration running and never have to speak with a telecom in my life. But one day I will. But so that means then I'm also not able to deploy the service where I cannot find a service provider, or I do not have a relationship with a telecom, right? So the self-custodial option is aiming at fixing that as well. The thing we're going to use is pretty much this thingamajiggy here. This is basically a Java card board or chip, right? So the difference between this Java card and every other Java card is that the chip is as thin as this plastic thingy here. So I think there's enough contrast here. So there's a plastic film there. So it's so thin that you can effectively program whatever you need to program on this chip and then stick it on top of your normal SIM card, right? And this then adds a SIM toolkit applet on your phone that you could use to, store a private key and sign transactions, right, using that private key, right? And so then anyone in any country will get the ability to self-custody using this. I think Java card technology is at a very good space now, even in the Bitcoin space, because I think projects like TapSigner are actually using Java card to store their private keys on the card, right? And Spectre also has a very healthy Java card repository. And so a person is able to store a private key on this and then use that private key to sign Bitcoin transactions. There's only one missing element, right? And the missing element is effectively how do you communicate with the Java card chip, right? So with Spectre or with TapSigner and a few other projects, the primary method is NFC, right? And of course, if you have a smartphone like this one right here, you are able to communicate via NFC. But if you do not have a smartphone like that and you have a feature phone, you are not in a position to actually use NFC, right? So what we are working on is an SMS interface, right? And the interface will effectively be the same thing as Electrum. Just instead of an HTTP interface to an Electrum server, you have an SMS interface to an Electrum server, right? And there's, of course, a lot of constraints with the SMS nature of it all, since you cannot send as much data as an HTTP interface. So we are looking at, okay, how much information are you going to share, and how do you do it in a privacy-preserving manner, right? So, there's a lot of interesting projects in that regard, but we'll see if we are able to pull that off.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So are you involved in terms of the billing with the local telecom companies? Do they charge your customers, or do you just pay the SSD?
I pay
SSD.
USSD. I pay the USSD session cost, right? Not in all countries. I think in Kenya, it's the customer pays for it. In South Africa and pretty much every other country,
Is there a way to convert their Lightning balance to mobile money on the mobile network?
No.
Okay, so it's just Lightning.
Yeah, it's just Lightning. And if they do want to convert it into mobile money, they have to use a different service provider. This is where companies like Bitnob come in, right? So Bitnob is available, I think, in 4 of the countries that I'm in, or 3 of them: Ghana, Kenya, and Nigeria, right? And so you can then send Bitcoins from Bitnob into a mobile money number. I think that's those are the guys that Strike did their send globally integration with. So you are then able to do that. On my side, I also just wanted to keep it as a Bitcoin wallet, right? So it's not really an on-ramp or an off-ramp. People just get the ability to send and receive Bitcoin. So no trading for Bitcoin or vice versa.
Okay, but they're only able to send and receive Bitcoin on your platform to other people on your platform. Can they send to other Lightning addresses?
Yes, they can send to other Lightning addresses.
Oh, okay. But then how do you copy the address on a SMS?
Yeah, so you can type out the Lightning address over USSD, right? So the user has 20 seconds to type out, right? So we are using the, what's this? LNURL Lightning address, which looks like an email. And so effectively my one is Kgothatso at 833.mobi, right? And Bitnob also has support for Lightning addresses, and I think who's this? Strike recently added support for Lightning addresses, and Cash App, from what I heard, is also working on Lightning address support. So then what we did, because 20 seconds is also not too much time, is the user gets the ability to input the username half of the Lightning address first, and then input the domain half of the Lightning address after. So on 2 different screens. So now they have 40 seconds to input that. But if the amount of time is not enough, they can dial the code again and continue where they left off. So that is effectively what we implemented to make that process easier.
That's very nice. And are you considering turning it into a fiat on-ramp and off-ramp, or are you just happy to stick with it remaining a Bitcoin business? I mean, I guess the simplicity in terms of just not having to deal with any kind of regulatory issues is enormous, right?
Yes, I'd prefer not to have any fiat on-ramp, off-ramp capability on it. I'd prefer to use other services, in this case, like Esteco, right? I think also what Esteco achieved of giving people the ability to just go to a corner store, buy a voucher and redeem that voucher for Bitcoin is an experience that is hard to match, right? And even for a person who's not technical, that is a way better experience than telling a person, create an account on an exchange, give them your name and give them all of these other documents, and then you'll have the ability to acquire Bitcoin, right? So I'd prefer leaving most of that a task to Esteco, and so far they're doing a great job in South Africa. I think you can go to at least 200,000 outlets or stores or spaza shops and corner stores and actually buy one of their vouchers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Esteco's has got a nice business model going, and they've got enormous penetration across Africa and across Europe and across many places in the world, I think. And that they're growing. They just got a new round of investment. I wish them the best of luck.
Yeah.
So what do you see as your strategy or your vision for growing this? So you don't want people to, I mean, you said you don't want to have 500 million users.
Without the self-custodial option.
So what are you going to do if you get 500 million users?
Well, that's where the self-custodial option comes in, right? But I do want the service to get to 1 billion users, right? So what we are working on is effectively giving people a way to use Bitcoin on a day-to-day basis. As you said, USSD is ideal for a hot wallet. Something you would use on a day-to-day basis. And we have an integration with Bitrefill. Bitrefill is also, one of the best companies you could make use of as a Bitcoiner in the world. You can buy your airtime using Bitrefill. In South Africa, you can buy groceries and shop, buy clothes and all these different things. And we've integrated them for the groceries, the shopping, and I think restaurants, right? So people could also go to restaurants and pay using the vouchers they get on Bitrefill. And yeah, so then the other ones are crypto convert,
And
which
so
are
sorry, let me just clarify that
Mhm.
they're integrated in terms of a Lightning address. So I can just send the Lightning send Lightning payment to Bitrefill,
Mhm.
and they'll send me the code for a voucher that I could use at a restaurant or a supermarket in South Africa.
Yeah, it's a more tighter integration because I have an API with Bitrefill, right? Since my user was also maybe not in a position to go to bitrefill.com and get a Lightning address or set up their Lightning address with the service. So I have to then get whatever product that Bitrefill sells and present it to the customer. And then the customer can say, "Oh, what's in the menu?" We call it barter BTC, right? So the menu of bartering Bitcoin for goods and services. And then they see you could get groceries, electricity, or some online stuff, and restaurant vouchers. And then they pick whichever one they want. So let's say groceries, and then Checkers is in the list. And so then they buy a Checkers voucher. They enter the amount that they want to buy, and then Bitrefill sends us an invoice, and then we show the customer how much Bitrefill wants them to pay in sats for, let's say, 50 rands worth of groceries, and then they confirm, and then we send their Bitcoin from their balance to Bitrefill, and then Bitrefill delivers the voucher. And now they are in a position to, spend that voucher at their Checkers grocery store.
That's pretty amazing. Really, really fantastic work. It's such a genius way of getting around the limitations of non-smartphones. Pretty amazing. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you were saying, before I cut you off, you were saying after Bitrefill, the other service.
Yeah, the other service is Crypto Convert. So Crypto Convert is a great service, by the way. I respect the guy who started it. He's called Karel. He's, I think, also the co-founder of one of the biggest exchanges in Africa called Luno. But with Crypto Convert, you can go to any Pick and Pay in South Africa. And at the till point, when you say you are paying, say, pay with a QR code, and then they present you with the Pick and Pay QR code, and his service converts that QR code into a Vault 11 invoice. And then you are able to pay for that transaction using Bitcoin from any wallet you have on your device, whether that's Moon Wallet, that's Phoenix Wallet, that's Wallet of Satoshi. The transaction goes through all because the service is in between you and Pick and Pay, and then they settle Pick and Pay's bill using fiat, and everyone is happy. And Bitcoiners are living on Bitcoin, and Pick and Pay is able to do their accounting.
That's fantastic. I was just wondering, how many, can you give us numbers on the number of users that you have, how much you're growing, any kind of idea about how you're growing country-wise?
Yeah, we recently had or reached 7,000 users, right? So I think we are growing at little below 1% a day, right? Actually, maybe 0.5% a day. And the biggest usage has come from Kenya. Yeah, Kenya and Ghana. So Ghana has had the most users sign up at any point. I don't know why. But from a transaction perspective, South Africa is on top because Azteco has a bigger integration here. So it's much easier for people to go to a corner store and buy an on-ramp onto Bitcoin. And then Bitrefill also has a huge presence in South Africa. So people have a lot more options to spend on in South Africa versus every other African country. So even though the user numbers in South Africa are not as high as those in Ghana, the usage numbers is higher in South Africa.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
And so people in Ghana are just sort of holding on to their currencies, whereas people in South Africa are spending them more day to day.
Yeah.
Mostly, right?
Yeah, and in Ghana, I think the only thing they could buy for now is airtime. So they could buy airtime from Bitrefill.
I see. Yeah, but I mean, I think when you look at it, and it's a mature form in South Africa with proper Bitrefill and Azteco integration and hundreds of thousands of spots where you can redeem and sell those Lightning nodes. I mean, it's a truly very powerful inflation escape hatch. So all of these countries where you operate, they all have shitty currencies. Pretty much all countries have shitty currencies at this point. Nothing special about a country having a bad currency. But I mean, South Africa's rand has been struggling, particularly over the last few years. And so you could just simply opt out of all of that by just holding on to Bitcoin on your wallet, on your mobile phone.
Exactly. Right.
And then you're basically, you spend you convert it into fiat whenever you need the fiat. So you don't have to hold on to significant balances of fiat, which is pretty amazing. So even for your spending cash, which for many people is a significant amount of their wealth, because if you don't have a lot of savings, your day-to-day spending is a significant part of your wealth. And so therefore, if you're holding it in your local currency, which is the currency that you spend it with, you're constantly suffering the devaluation of the currency, which is adding up over time. It can go quickly or it can go slowly, but we all know it only goes in one direction with fiat.
Yes.
It all goes down. And now you can just all hold the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And I hope, at least on the long run, that works out better than holding on to fiat, which isn't saying much.
Yeah, right. And I think the other reason for the project is effectively how it seems that people, even in countries that are experiencing high inflation, have not adopted Bitcoin. This is your Argentinas, this is your Turkeys, even, Nigeria and Zimbabwe. So, my question is why? Is it a technical reason? Is it some other reason that people are not using Bitcoin as, that escape hatchet? And so if it's a technical reason, what the tools that would help a person adopt Bitcoin, how would they look like? Right? And in Africa, I think the success of mobile money is something to be studied and maybe emulated, right? Which is, I think mobile money in Pesa in Kenya started around the same time as Bitcoin, right? In the late 2000s. And then it's effectively the primary way of sending payments across the continent, right? So if anyone is sending digital payments, chances are 90% of all the digital payments across Africa are via USSD, right? So in South Africa, our banks also use the USSD interface. So Absa Bank, Capitec, Time Bank, whichever bank you're using has a USSD interface, because most people may not, the reasons I listed earlier, may not have a smartphone. The smartphone may not be able to install the app. There's no net neutrality, whatever. Right? And due to the nature of payments being peer-to-peer, a network effect, the person you're paying needs the ability to not only receive the payment, but also send the payment, right? So if they do not have these two properties, they are most likely not going to accept your form of payment because they cannot accept and send, right? So USSD in Africa has been the best method of digital payments to date, right? And so I don't know what that looks like in other countries or other regions, but I believe we could emulate other things like social media, how Facebook is free in other countries because, of course, network effects, right? So the more people you have using the network, the better. So I think Bitcoin is a similar thing. So if anyone is in a position to reverse bill an Electrum server in a country or in a region, and then all the other Bitcoin apps or Bitcoin wallets that use Electrum are then able to give their users the ability to send and receive Bitcoin without the need of internet, if internet is a barrier to usage of a technology, right? So we may actually attempt that in some of the countries where smartphone penetration is high and internet penetration or mobile internet penetration is also high. So we'll see how that goes.
That's fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing that you've been involved in, you went recently to the Oslo Freedom Forum.
Mm-hmm.
And you spoke there about your startup and about Bitcoin in general. Can you give us your thoughts on what your technology does in terms of freedom, liberation, and political activism for those things? What can you offer? Do you see this as being a useful technology?
Yeah. Yes. Right. I think, well, I'm primarily going to speak from what Bitcoin offers, right? Because my startup is just one of the options a person could make use of if they want to make use of Bitcoin in their day-to-day. One reason you mentioned is, of course, the inflation hedge, right? As your national currency is going down a death spiral, you have an option. You could just, use Bitcoin. And though the biggest side effect I believe we are going to see is entrepreneurship. Yeah, you have a saying that Bitcoin gives us the option to separate work and state, right? And a lot of the time, not too many people or not too many entrepreneurs are able to accept payments without intervention of their state, right? And then entrepreneurship is one of the reasons why the standard of living usually increases in so many locations, right? So Africa, for example, is not electrified. Most of the African population does not have easy access to electricity. Africa also, internet penetration is low, right? So how is a shitty currency affecting that? Right? So you are an entrepreneur, you're an investor, you want to put money down on electrifying the continent, right? But then you have to struggle with the capital controls of moving that money out once you are profitable, right? So let's say, well, chances are you are going to be profitable because everyone wants electricity, right? So the capital controls prohibit you from even starting because you're like, okay, cool. Even if I'm profitable, I will have a hard time moving this money out of the country before we start addressing inflation, right? So I believe the more businesses accept Bitcoin as a form of payment, the more we will start seeing entrepreneurs actually attempt entrepreneurial endeavors and that develop or improve the standard of living across the African continent, right? And yeah, it will make it easier for people to raise investor money. It will make it easier for investors to move their capital out the country because, it's very hard to put capital controls on Bitcoin. And yeah, so that also has a very positive impact on freedom and the political landscape of society, I believe. Right? So yeah, then how do we get more businesses accepting Bitcoin? And how do we get more people using Bitcoin and going to places that accept Bitcoin as a form of payment? And that is what I hope the service is actually going to be able to contribute towards. And we'll just see what it is like over the next few years.
Very nice. Do you offer merchants the service? Do you have merchants who sign up? I mean, I guess it's so simple that the experience for a merchant is no different from the experience for a regular customer. You just need to get an email address with you or a lightning address, right?
Yeah.
Do you have customers who do this?
Yes.
Nice. I mean, businesses who do this.
Yeah. There's actually a restaurant in Ghana, I think One Corner Garden. If anyone is ever in Ghana, put One Corner Garden on Google Maps and go spend your Bitcoin there. And they are using the service. But over time, we have had to implement new features specifically for the store or the merchants, right? Because they use Bitcoin a little differently, or they accept payments a little differently because they would have a worker who is the one who's accepting the payment, or a worker who's, managing the business. So you really cannot have Bitcoin on one phone. Well, you can, but, it makes things harder when a person wants to pay and they're like, oh, the person who has the phone is not here now, or something like that. So how other people are solving it, let me start with that, right? In Brazil, Bitcoin Beach Brazil, prior Bitcoin, they are the ones who are fully exploring the Bitcoin point of sale way, right? And that is effectively have a point of sale device that can accept Bitcoin via NFC and all these different manners. And the store just has that point of sale right next to the other point of sale devices that the store uses. And for me, this has been the best experience in terms of being in a place that accepts Bitcoin, where I know I can go to a store and not be told, oh, the person who has or who accepts Bitcoin is not here, or the person who has the PIN to unlock the wallet is not here. Right? So yeah, if anyone is exploring whatever are the best way to accept Bitcoin payments for merchants, go to Bitcoin Beach, Brazil, prior Bitcoin, Jericho Quara, I think, and spend a few days there and just go to the stores and spend your Bitcoin, and then you'll get the full experience. And then the other thing which is what we are doing is effectively give people or the merchant the ability to set up a group account, right? So we call them clans. And so on a group account, you can have an account and have members in your account. And so each member gets the ability to see the full transaction history of that account, right, of that clan. And then you have a spending policy. Like if a person wants to spend Bitcoin that is in the balance, what approvals are there? What approvals are required? In our case, you can have majority approval, which means majority of the members in the group have to give approval, or admin approval, which means admins of the group have to give approval for the spend. And this for us correlates with how a business would operate. You know, you'd have a business owner, the admin, and then have the workers who become members of the clan, who can see that a customer actually paid Bitcoin and the Bitcoin settled via Lightning or via on-chain, whatever else, right? And then from here, what do we do? Oh, it's actually another interesting use case for the group thing is because in Africa, we have things like stokvels or chamas, right? So another word for it in Kenya, I think they call it table banking, where a group of people come together and put money in a pot and towards a cause, or elect one member in the group to receive the full pot every month. So it's then a round robin, right? So each member gets a month where they get the full balance of the pot. And we hope that the group account feature gives them that ability. So people come together and then are able to put money into a Bitcoin balance or a Bitcoin Lightning address, and then elect one member each month who gets the full balance, or distribute the balance amongst all the members after a certain amount of time, right? So but businesses can also use the clan feature just to give their workers the ability to see the full transaction history and to see the balance of the service, and maybe propose spends for day-to-day purposes as well.
It's an incredible amount of functionality you're getting out of this very, very simple idea. It's really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
When Paco first told me about it, it seemed very surprising for me that you could just milk so much functionality out of something so simple as dumb phones, basically. But here you are. So, congratulations, seriously.
Thank you. And I think I should give you a live demo.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Mm-hmm. So let me see. But okay, let me then talk about something else while this happens. So the interesting thing for us, one of the interesting things for us is that there's effectively no uniform on-ramps across the African continent. Right? And the reason for this is because Bitcoin is banned, air quotes, right? So in most countries, central banks issued a notice. The Central Bank of Kenya, Central Bank of Nigeria, Central Bank of Tanzania issued a notice that says you are not able to issue or trade Bitcoin as a financial institution. You are not able to provide facilities that allows people to trade Bitcoin for the national currency and vice versa. And anyone who does that gets their bank account shut down, right? So that is also part of the reason why I am not looking to become a fiat on-ramp or off-ramp, because I will be forced to then not have a bank account. Well, I already don't have a bank account in each of these countries, but it's a headache that I don't want to take on at the current moment. Yeah, so I think you are about to get the full process because I haven't used this service on this phone yet. Cool. So yeah, when a person uses the Machankura service, they effectively have to dial the USSD code, which is *134 *7714 in South Africa. Right, it's different in each country because it's like a domain that's kept with the telecom. So every time you dial the USSD code, the domain looks at their directory to see which service is behind the USSD code, and then they say, oh, Machankura, this phone number is trying to access your service. And then, yeah, and from here, a person could, or explore the full menu to receive Bitcoin. They get sent Bitcoin via their Lightning address, right? And of course, from this point, they can get a QR code, since a Lightning address has a QR code. And for this phone, the Lightning address is Alfred, and you can go to 833.mobi/Alfred and get the static QR code for this device. And it's also my phone number on this device. And yeah, so let's say a person has gotten or is trying to acquire their first Bitcoin, right? So as we mentioned earlier, they would buy a voucher from Azteco and, then redeem it on the USSD interface. And all they'll have to type out is the 16 digits from the Azteco voucher. And yeah, then a person is able to acquire Bitcoin, right? And yeah, the other thing, as mentioned earlier, that we wanted to solve is, if a person has a positive Bitcoin balance, how or what would they use? Or as you see, this prompt is, do you want to continue your previous incomplete session? I'm just going to start a new one. And the reason for this is, of course, it's a 20-second timeout. So it's highly probable that a person is not able to input all the things when they are using the service, right? But yeah, now let's say a person has a positive balance with Bitcoin, right? Of course, in this case, since this is a new account, it's a zero balance, so my balance is 0 sats. If I did have a positive balance, I'd be able to go to my transaction history and see which transaction added or subtracted from the balance, right? But then let's say I have a positive balance. I went to the Bitcoin exchange rate, so a person could use the service to check on the Bitcoin exchange rate if they don't have access to an exchange, right? Which most likely they don't, right? So they can then barter Bitcoin, barter goods and services, right? So for airtime, groceries, restaurant vouchers, fuel vouchers, electricity, online, right? So majority of these are with Bitrefill, as I mentioned earlier. So but the electricity one is with Crypto Convert, right? So with Bitrefill, I can pick a store, and in this case, I'm going to pick Checkers, right? And yeah, how much Checkers groceries to buy for yourself? Minimum R1, maximum 5,000 rands, so on and so forth. And I enter the amount, so on and so forth. Since I have a zero balance, I'm unable to do that, right? But what I can then do is dial the USSD code again. Please don't show the numbers as I'm typing. And to new session. And yeah, when I send Bitcoin, I could just go here and then send Bitcoin. Where would you like to send your Bitcoin to? A phone number, Lightning address, Machankura username, right? So obviously with a Lightning address, I can send to any Lightning address in the world, right? I would, let's say, my wallet of Satoshi Lightning address. But since this is so long, a person with a feature phone may not be able to type out the full thing. So I could then enter the domain on a separate screen, and cool, let's do that. Wallet of Satoshi.com, which is also a long thing. And it's like, okay, what would you like to do? Send sats, ZAR, BTC, or USD, right? So of course sats are the standard. I send that, and then enter how much that you want to send to. So repost, I'm just gonna say 21, and of course my balance is 0. You're about to send, and fee is 1 sats, which is 1% of the transaction, and your balance is 0 sats, too low, blah blah blah. And what else is there for me to do in this? Oh yeah, so the other thing we talked about is the clans feature, which effectively allows you to have a group clan, right? A group account and hold a balance. So I'm not a member of any clans, so I'm just gonna create a clan, right, for demonstration purposes, and I need to enter a short and unique name, max 16 characters with no space for my new clan, right? So I'm just gonna say Badger, because I think that is what's the name of the lip bound I'm using. And yeah, you're about to create a clan with the name Badger. Continue, right? And select the action policy. As I did say, it's either admin majority or member majority, right? Or admin super majority, or connection problem, invalid MMI, right? So that usually happens because connection timed out, right? I think you have a 2-minute maximum session time with USSD, but with our menu, you can continue from the previous screen. Sorry, the name has already been taken. Since I was in the process of actually creating a thingamajiggy, please do not show the top of the screen as I type there, which is I copied it, but I keep forgetting to paste. And then running USSD code. Nope, I'm gonna start a new session. Right? So I pressed cancel by mistake, my bad. So yeah, well, this one I can continue because it was still on the main screen, but anyway, I'm gonna just do a new one. And then I go to the clans and Badger, I'm the admin of the clan. Let's see if it did or I didn't. So now I can continue with the policy. So I'm just gonna make it a majority rule, right? And with the majority action policy, the clan Badger at 8333 needs at least 50% approval from all members on the proposal, and then I can confirm. And the clan Badger has been set to that, right? So cool. Now I can then paste that again and get back to the Badger. Nope, new session because that kind of ended. And then see the clan. And of course, now with the clan, as a member of the clan, I have all the functionality that a normal Machankura user account. But instead of a send, it's a propose. I can propose to send, right? So then in this case, propose to send Badger Bitcoins to a phone number, lightning address, all members. If I'm sending to all members of the clan, I could either send the whole balance or a percentage of the balance, right? But that is not what I'm going to do now. So maybe I can go back from the screen. Okay, I can't go back from the screen, so I'm just going to dial it again. And yeah, but a clan has the full functionality of a normal Machankura user account, just with the benefits of having members see the full transaction history or the balance of the service, right? So yeah, let me go to the badge. I can also view invites, maybe, or view members in this case. From the member screen, I'm the only member, right? I could invite more members, or I could see the other members, but of course there's no one here, so I'm just going to go back. And I also didn't implement the back button on that. My bad. So please don't show me when I'm typing, just show the full screen. And running USSD code, new session, and so on and so forth. Yeah, but that's basically the full feature set of the service for now. But you can acquire Bitcoin via Stake, spend your Bitcoin via Bitrefill, spend your Bitcoin via Crypto Convert, create a clan, spend the clan's balance, see the full clan balance in history, deposit funds into the clan. Okay, this one has a back button, right? So it has 0 sats, and it's similar. I could see the transactions. Deposit BTC is also similar to the normal account. And it also has a page 8333.mobi/badger and so on and so forth. Cool. And that's pretty much it. That's Machankura in a nutshell.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for showing us that, Kgothatso. Now, tell us, where can people find you? What are your plans? Are you looking for investors by any chance? Is this something that we should put out there in case you're looking for investors for growth?
Yeah, I was. There's some news coming out with that regard quite soon. Should almost be done raising around.
Very nice. Very nice. And if somebody wants to get in touch with you, where do they find you, or where do they find their website, the service?
Yeah, so the main website is
where to find you online.
Yeah, main website is 8333.mobi, right? And you should be able to find all the other accounts from there in the footer. Of course, Twitter, The Machankura Twitter account is there, and the Nostra account is also there. And I think all the other social media and every other website you may want to follow us on is there as well.
Excellent. Yes. We'll be posting all these in the show notes. Thank you so much, Kgothatso. This is a very inspiring story about just how Bitcoin beats down barriers and finds a way. It's truly inspiring, and really, I wish you all the best with everything that you're doing, and keep us posted with all of your progress.
Thank you very much for having me. And yeah, may have not been here if you had not written the Bitcoin Standard. And yeah, keep on publishing all the great books.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.